All killer, no filler. Damn radio.
Hello, good evening. Welcome. I'm Samuel Trapp. It is 9 p.m. in Lake Ozark, Missouri, and this, excuse me, is International Flavor. You're on damnradio.com, where I like it when you're listening and are paying attention to all the good things that are going on today. This is my last show of the week, unless I suppose you're going to count Sunday as the last day of the week like they do in some cultures, but I still count Sunday as the first day of the week. I don't know why. It's just always been that way to me. And Sunday night, I want to make sure to point out that my Scott Ritter interview, Arms Control Inspector, nuclear armaments for the UN, he worked with me around the same time. I think he was a little, I know he was before me, but I think we overlapped some at the IN when we were working on the INF treaty in Washington, D.C. at an agency called the On-Site Inspection Agency. And he gave me the honor of a nearly 2-hour interview. And so Sunday, you will hear that interview in its entirety, except for the 4 or 5 minutes of dead air because we had an internet problem. I was able to cut that out. I'm going to be releasing it in the Russian language at the same time. I believe I've figured that out. It'll be a Russian video, and I will release it because it'll actually be in Moscow. When our show starts, it'll be like 6 a.m, maybe 7. From they're 8 hours ahead of us, and so it'll be released in Russian and also in English at the same time. We'll be live at damnradio.com, and then it will be on internationalflavor.com. It'll be on my YouTube channel in Russian. And I believe I'm going to figure out how to, I'm going to upload the original onto my YouTube channel in English so that the whole video is out there. You can go out and watch the whole video. It was a great video. I like chatting with him, and I've almost got the, I don't know what you'd call it, review, editing, whatever you want to call it, but it's turning out pretty. It's I'm going to listen to it again tomorrow. Make sure that I don't jack it up any. I encourage you to listen. It's a pretty interesting show. And remember, the topic I went with him was not arms control. It was not. He's an expert on weapons of mass destruction and what went on during that time period because he came out against it back then. He told me a great story about that. He's a free speech person, and he's been fighting for free speech for a long time. He's an anti-Russophobia guy, and many of the things that we talked about, I'm hoping to meet with him again because I believe we got quite a bit to add. And so I'd appreciate it if you joined on Sunday night and listened in. It'll be at 9 p.m. It'll be on for 2 hours, and I'm gonna have a quick little intro and then introduce the show and listen to it myself, and then at the end say thank you very much. Have a nice day, because all I got to do is push play on the damn thing. If I could figure it out, I might have JR just upload it so that but I don't know. I think I'll probably say a couple of things before and after, but it's could be I call Sundays my deep dive days. And that is definitely a deep dive into the freedom of speech or lack thereof and a lot of things that have gone on in America in the past several years. It's disappointing to me and freaking fortunate. But for tonight's show, by the way, if you wish to call in and comment and speak with me, it's 573-746-8020. I'd be happy to talk with you. I may be playing a couple of cuts from some things that I've reviewed today. I'm reviewing a lot of news today because I really haven't done so almost this whole week. I got to tell you, I am a sleep-deprived individual, just so you know. And I don't know what is up with me, but I didn't sleep at all last night. If I got 45 minutes, that's an exaggeration. I didn't even get 45 minutes. I don't know, lay there and try to figure out why I can't sleep. Get more and more pissed off. 1 second I'm sweating, and next minute I'm freezing. I'm shaking, and I don't know. I got problems. So I happen to have a sleep. I don't know what, a sleep consult with a doctor today. That was a pretty interesting concept, and because you can do a lot of this sort of thing. Has anybody ever done a doctor's video consult? This is my first time. No, you know what? I think I did one during COVID. I did one during COVID when I happened to be stuck in Wyoming in a snowstorm, and I got my doctor in Missouri. I had an appointment in Missouri, and I had a review of all of that during a big old snowstorm, stuck in some hotel room, couldn't get anywhere. Well, I had 4-wheel drive, but what's the point? Nobody else was out. Anyway, it was an interesting deal. So if I'm a little punchy, I'm apologizing up front, is all I'm telling you. I am in the apologizing business even as we speak. And we are going to today pay quite a bit of attention to the news of the day, and there's been such a lot of it. It's been a hell of a news day today, and we might be winding down the war. Now, this is a unilateral, or well, a bilateral really, but it's not trilateral, meaning it doesn't include Zelensky. This is a conversation and both sides have confirmed it now. Well, the U.S. has confirmed the meeting, and Putin has confirmed the meeting, and they're saying they're probably going to meet. Putin has suggested the UAE. Anyway, I've got some news to get to, and I have so much of it that I really want to go through with you. But for the openers, let's start with, because I'm going to tear apart some headlines today. So this international flavor, of course, the news always tastes better here because it's got an international flavor. See there? You figure that out yet? And that's what I always say anyway. And it's also a place where we're going to tear apart these headlines like they were little bits of pita bread or naan bread. I really like naan bread. And you can dip it in all the dips that the Indian restaurants give you. Oh my God, you ever get one of those plates? I forget what it's called, but they have all of these different varieties of dips that you can dip the naan bread in. Fantastic. You can't really do it at home, although I have figured out how to make my own hummus. I'm getting better at that. And but I don't know what that has to do with anything except that I like to tear apart headlines, like I tear apart the naan bread and dip it in something and give it a little bit of flavor, right? Not that naan bread isn't fantastic when it's nice and warm anyway, but we're going to look under the hood, as it were, and see how the engine of the news is really working. We're going to move across continents, across battle lines, through a lot of trade wars and a lot of diplomatic, stances that people are holding on to right now, and into whatever various empires still remain out there. We still got these alleged empires. We're gonna check it out. We're gonna, whatever hashtags we have out there, we're gonna instead of a London governor, we're going to give you somebody from Brussels with a rainbow lanyard and a UN badge. And check out those nut jobs. And it's not only the West, it's everybody's in on it today. All major powers are now playing the games and making, this. I think Trump has got to do something about this war. And I think he's taken an effort because he can't allow what's about to happen. We'll get into that. But it's every country, East and West. The currency might not be oil, natural gas, rare earth, or trade routes. The tools might be tariffs, sanctions, and summits, but the goal, everyone has the same goal. End the war, control the narrative, write the rules so you can win before the other guy even shows up, to the negotiating table. Frankly, I think Russia's in a pretty strong position right now, and they confirmed something of a deal that they were given today, and I want to go a little bit into that too. So we're gonna, Russian troops are pressing forward in places like Pokrovsk, like Kherson, and it's connected right now to Trump and Putin circling each other over a possible deal. Trump wants this over, and I gotta appreciate that. And I don't think he wants to be stuck having to listen to Lindsey Graham propose another $50 billion that the Americans do not want to give Ukraine. There's no heart in this. Not for money from us. People don't believe in it. They don't believe in what is going on. So we've got there's some pretty big threats going on. What is the West's game plan? We don't, it's not a very good one because Russia's beating the snot out of them. And why is BRICS suddenly acting like a real trading bloc? Well, I'll tell you again, it's because it is. And why is Trump, in his own way, through tariffs, through more sanctions, helping them unite? We're going to talk about Moldova waving a little rainbow flag. They got a flag, they can't control their own country. But boy, they're definitely going to, have the support of the gays over there. I mean, not that I really care, but geez, take care of your country first, don't you think? We'll talk about Europe cutting Ukrainian refugees' benefits in Germany. That's an interesting article. China calling the U.S. tariffs as bullying, and how this all fits into one thing: a large global map where the old powers and the old power centers are feeling the ground shift. Okay. And I believe that to be true myself. I really do. And I'm certainly there's talk about getting rid of sanctions for the Russians. That's part of the deal they are talking about. So first, let's talk about a little bit of multipolarity. I read something today that pretty much nailed it. The idea that democracy has become a new bayonet. Only now it comes shrink wrapped with instructions printed in English and a QR code to download the approved, portions. It's called resilience. It's called empowerment, but it's empowerment where your local culture gets paved with murals that look like they were designed by Brooklyn Art Collective, and your traditional music is swapped out for, a UN, Spotify list. In the old days, the empire brought soldiers. Today it brings consultants. There's a consultant for everything. They fly them in business class, laptops, and everybody, with multicolored hair and with gender mainstreaming toolkits into like Moldova and other countries, whatever community engagement strategies. Everybody's a community activist these days. We pay for all of their media through U.S. Agency for International Development. Hope that doesn't come back, and they sit and everybody nods sympathetically and then tells you that your sovereignty is outdated. You don't get it. Your religion is a folklore, not something we believe in. And what you really need is a mobile app for civic engagement so everybody can, socialize. Social media together. The genius of the modern empire is that it doesn't have to conquer. It just seduces you. It packages itself as liberation until your economy, your media, even your elections are tethered to outside approval. You're distracted by all these things. You know what I'm distracted by lately? I might have told you this, and I don't know. But if I pull up my YouTube page, anytime I pull it up, front and center, probably because I've looked at it, but front and center on my YouTube page are these videos of AI robots. And I ask you again, I think I said something about this a couple of weeks ago. Why are they always women? Why? Why are AI robots? I mean, when are we going to see something, a man, or a strong robot? I suppose they're all women. Are women going to outnumber men as robots too? I mean, they already outnumber us. You would think it'd be the reverse. I don't know. But here's the thing. There's no real pushback. All of these things are not organized really by any central committee. Serbia remembers NATO's bombs. Iran holds funerals that double as political rallies. India says we'll buy our oil from whoever we damn well please. And Russia refuses to sign on to some sort of security concept written in Washington. It's, like it or not, multipolarity is coming. And it's messy, it's loud, it's contradictory, but that's the undercurrent. Almost every story that I'm going to get into tonight, and because it's a pretty good group, of stories. There's plenty of news here, plenty, and plenty to know about. I want to get to the deal that they were talking about. I think that before I get to that, where is my summary of this? So Ukraine is getting the crap bombed out of them. They're losing. They're getting beat up. Russians have cut off three of the four roads into and out of Pokrovsk. Big city, fairly large industrial place, population 60,000 pre-war, and all that. And there are battles for Kherson, Pokrovsk, and people are just trying to, survive until a deal is made because the Ukrainians want this over too. Basically, in Pokrovsk, which is Zaporizhia region, the Russian forces are advancing from multiple directions at once. They're basically in a U shape, surrounded, and the Ukrainians got one way out to the northwest, basically. And the Ukrainian defenders are under constant and grinding pressure. Supplies and reinforcements are slim to none. And it's a survival game. Every day they just got to hold out and try to not be slaughtered. And it's not going that well. The situation is rapidly deteriorating. This is part of the reason that Trump's trying to come up with tomorrow's is actually 10 days, right? There are 2 more days and take it to Sunday, but they're allegedly going to try to get this done before then. But Trump has been pushing it because number one, he doesn't want to impose. He likes the threat of imposing sanctions. He likes the threat of imposing new tariffs, but he doesn't want to do it. And he also knows that Ukraine is losing on the battlefield. I know that people are lying to him about that, but I think he sees through it, and it's really not that way, that they're not winning. So Pokrovsk is looking bad. Kherson, Russian units are repositioning, not for an immediate push, but they're redeploying artillery, logistics, and troop concentrations. I saw something today that said that they are now sending. They've like through the Belarus region, up through Belarus and through where Kursk was in Sumy. They're sending a pretty large force into there in the hopes of getting Ukraine to have to commit to pulling out of Kherson and Zaporizhia, which are basically the what do you call it? Pokrovsk area is the biggest part, and then some of the other ones to get them to have to move. You know, the reverse of the game that the Ukrainians were playing before, where they wanted to attack Kursk so that the Russians would have to. This was a foolish and stupid plan because the Russians outnumbered them a hell of a lot and slaughtered the crap out of them. But if the Russians can reposition and what they're doing, it's not like a huge push, but it's gradual. And they're redeploying artillery, logistics, troop concentration, probably in preparation for a renewal offensive later in the year, fall, early winter, something like that. And they want to tie down Ukrainian forces in the south so they can't reinforce the Donbass area. And so Kherson could become a springboard if Russia decides to mount a larger operation. So it's, you know, the battlefield assessment of many different articles is as follows. Russia's operational approach is a slow, methodical, attritional, rather than a rapid breakthrough. But they're getting faster too, because they're just overpowering them, and they've got this down, and they are steadily grinding forward. The Ukrainian army is stretched thin on manpower, has logistical strains, and compounded defensive challenges. So their attritional model is framed as sustainable for Russia, you know, because Russia has far more coming in. The numbers say that Russia is still bringing in 30,000 plus a month, and Ukraine is nowhere near that number. Nowhere near. They're hating it. So the attrition is not, but still a lot of people are dying. So I don't want to make that sound horribly positive because too many people are dying. But I don't know. It would be nice to do a side-by-side map of where we are, you know. I don't know. The fact is that both parties have stated that there's going to be a meeting, probably in United Arab Emirates, between Putin and Trump. And I wonder, there's not been a whole lot of comment about the Z-Man, but he tends to show up in places whether you invite him or not. So it wouldn't surprise me. Okay. Trump, Steve Witkoff went to Moscow. Kremlin claims what is his name? Oh, nuts! I'll have it somewhere in this in my notes that I'm going through. But the Steve Witkoff is there, met with Putin. Kremlin claims that the U.S. made the first move by sending Witkoff in. The White House says that Trump's people and the Kremlin, they have mutual interest in talks. Well, of course they do. This should have happened long ago. But it was only a week ago where I was telling you that Trump, in a meeting where Keir Starmer was when he was in England, he was going, I don't want to meet with Putin anymore. I don't see the point. He talks and then he bombs the crap out of you. Well, because he's been pretty solid in what he's talking about, and he hasn't changed it. So I don't know. But Trump, you know, different day, different underwear. There you go. And different opinion, depending on who you sit with. And you know what? I hope this works. This sounds really positive for the first time that I've heard in a while. And I always thought this was the only way it was going to happen anyway. But, you know, I'm not a good Trump expert because he just drives me crazy sometimes, you know, with some of the stuff that he does. This constant posting is probably my least favorite thing about the guy. At any rate, Trump's people and the Kremlin have, you know, they've talked about this core deal, and that it's a truce in Ukraine, going back to the Witkoff plan and not to the Kellogg plan. Kellogg wants more war, and he wants Russia to give it up. You give all that stuff back. The guys, it's never going to happen, right? So basically, what the news is about what the deal is saying is that there's a truce in Ukraine, freezes a conflict along the current front lines, recognitions of Russia's control over Crimea, the occupied Donetsk and Lugansk, and the occupied Zaporizhia and Kherson territories. NATO membership for Ukraine permanently off the table. A rolling back of sanctions on Russia. This is probably the big carrot, is getting rid of some key sanctions. And then restart some of the U.S.-Russian energy trade, including oil and possibly gas. Zelensky and the EU leadership reportedly aren't involved in these discussions. They are out of the loop, according to the hosts. The strategic point of this is that Russia sees little incentive to deal with Ukraine unless Washington is prepared to make real concessions, and the battlefield situation gives Moscow a lot of confidence and a lot of power in these negotiations. They're bargaining from a position of power. But why now? Well, the most important is that, and I went over this, I don't remember when, but way back on Monday night, I think, is that Pokrovsk is, that's a big deal. And Russia's going to get it. Excuse me. And Russia's still advancing slowly and steadily all the way through the Donbass regions. Ukraine defenses are under strain. U.S. intelligence fears a frontline collapse before the year's end is what is being posted all over the eastern half of the world, or the, for us anyway. And Trump sees an opportunity to say that he brought peace. Frank, he ended the war. You know what? I'll give him the credit for it if he does. And but he and Putin both. It takes two, and the only way it's going to end is if somebody. I don't want to say bow to Putin, but recognize the position that you are in, and that is, I believe, what Russia's been asking all along, as I have said, because there's also huge fear on the Trumpster side of the BRICS dynamics and tariffs. Right, Trump's new tariffs are going to be a wave that some of them they have already hitting multiple BRICS members. I got several things to go through on that. Brazil, 50% tariffs officially. Those are over Bolsonaro's prosecution, and Lula's like, okay. Lula's meeting with India. Foreign minister or trade rep or somebody is going to Moscow to meet with them. Modi's going somewhere. Chinese are meeting with, all these BRICS countries are getting right to it. And I think that Trump is realizing that they aren't backing down, that, tariffs or no tariffs, Russia, China, India, Brazil are still going to be trading with each other. And the first three, well, leave Brazil off. Well, Brazil gets a little, but if you take those first three, they're huge oil and gas partners, and that is not gonna change. Doesn't matter, right? So India and China, the threats are a tariff Armageddon. Isn't that great? The tariff Armageddon, which would be India and China 100 to 150% tariffs. But the unintended consequences are BRICS countries are closing ranks instead of falling apart, which is what I predicted. Lula is calling for an emergency BRICS summit to coordinate the responses. Modi is going to China for the first time in 7 years. Then he's going to Russia. BRICS is trading in local currencies, alternative payment systems outside of SWIFT, and much more political contribution or freedom, to watch you out for your own country's best interest. So I mean, the world's changing. The West strategies, sanctions, tariffs, exclusion are encouraging multipolar alignment even more and more. Trump might view himself as a master deal maker, but in practice, these policies could be cementing BRICS together. And I think if that is his plan, he is mistaken. That's what I think. Russia's battlefield resilience and BRICS growing cohesion are two sides of the same coin because both of them mean that Washington is losing the ability to dictate, Lindsey Graham, losing the ability to dictate terms globally. Right now, we got to save face, is what I believe. Trump has to save face because nobody's gonna cave. They've all said they're not gonna. So and maybe, that's not what ends up happening. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I want to tell you about this Moldovan image. Maya Sandu is in Moldova, gets applause from the EU for her progressive social policies, the rainbow flag and all that. But at the same time, her government bans political parties. They arrested the opposition leader for 7 years and are tightening control over the media. Same crap everywhere in all these former Russian, Soviet, satellite countries, including Moldova. And opponents are branded as Russian agents every time. Criticism is called disinformation, just like here. And Brussels looks the other way in Moldova because Moldova is seen as a frontline state against Moscow. They already lost one region that is aligned with and is part of, well, they're Russian, but they're part of Moldova, a separate state. And this is what happens when geopolitics trumps, get it, democratic standards. You can create a precedent where leaders learn that they can repress dissent as long as they say the right thing on the international stage, as long as you support the gays, right? China and Brazil are pushing back. As I told you already, Lula called Trump not the emperor of the world, and he proposed a joint BRICS response. A shock like this might have split these countries up, 8-10 years ago. Not today. Germany is taking the refugee pivot, let's call it. They plan to cut benefits for new Ukrainian arrivals, shifting them from citizens allowance to lower asylum support, which is about €120 less a month. The reason given is budget pressure. Hosting 1.2 million Ukrainians is expensive, and only a third of them are employed. But politically, it's part of a shift away from this open-ended hospitality to integrate and work, or the welcome is going to wear out. I've showed you some videos of those where a lot of these, especially the young, are going there, getting these free dollars, and then going to go tour Europe. You're going to go tour Europe on the government's money. It's nonsensical. Meanwhile, Sergei Lavrov, Russia's foreign minister, who's one of the longest-serving diplomats, still at the helm of his, equivalent to the State Department, he's marking 50 years anniversary of the Helsinki Accords. Back in 1975, these agreements were supposed to lock in a baseline: respect the sovereignty of others, don't interfere with others, and work things out through dialogue. And the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe was born from that agreement. It could have been a bridge between the East and the West. Instead, from Russia's point of view, it's now NATO's junior partner with a multilateral logo. Kosovo, Chechnya, Ukraine, every time the finger is pointing the same direction. And now Lavrov says that Europe can still have a seat in the future security order, but only as part of an equal country, not as part of a colonial overlord in Brussels. People still see it that way. Frankly, I see it that way. What's the irony of all this? Europe's wounds right now are all self-inflicted. They cut off cheap Russian gas. They're getting it instead from the United States for a lot more money. Industries are all moving away. Farmers are squeezed, and they still tell themselves they're defending, democracy and, holding on to the garden and keeping it away from the jungle, that's encroaching, right? But the garden is really drying up anyway. Lavrov believes that one day Europe will get tired of economic self-harm. They haven't yet, but when that day comes, if that day comes, the door into Russia won't be locked. But that doesn't matter because they will not be allowed back in as Washington's sidekick. I don't think so either. I think they're going to have troubles, and some pretty big troubles, is what I believe. Let me pull up a couple of interesting tales. Where are we? Let's see. Lavrov talking about OSCE. I already told you. And where are my other articles? They had some pretty stinking good ones today. So the UN is requesting, as I said, certainly in Moldova, you should hear these stories. Moscow has called a UN Security Council meeting to address the persecution of Yevgenia Gutsul, and she's the leader of the party in Moldova. They claim in the UN Security Council that Moldova must respect her right to appeal and give her a fair trial and due process. Moscow has called for an extraordinary UN Council meeting to address this. She was convicted of receiving illegal campaign funds right after she won an election. We're aware of the and fined $2.3 million. We're aware of the decision in the case of Ms. Gutzel, but we do not have the details of the ruling. Her right to appeal the decision must be respected, as well the right to a trial and due process. But she didn't really get that. Russia called the meeting scheduled to take place. In fact, it should be over because it was supposed to take place on Thursday. Dmitry Polyansky was supposed to be there. And it's going to be behind closed doors, but we're supposed to hear about it afterward. So far, I haven't heard anything about it. But this is unprecedented. How many countries? I mean, think about it. How many people have been targeted in how many different countries for having an opposing voice? And by the way, Scott Ritter, remember Sunday, he has an opposing voice, and he was targeted for destruction, for what do you call it? Censorship. It's nonsensical. I don't like it. And I don't like it on any level. And we talk about it all the time. But when it exists in the UN, nobody says a damn word. Nobody says anything. We just, that's that. Who cares? What do we care if they're? Oh, why should we change anything? We're the good guys. And but if we ignore it, so will the rest of the world. I wanted to get into the stories of Benjamin Netanyahu again, but honestly, I don't have the stomach for it. I don't want to go there today. I think maybe I'll do one next week. But there was an interesting. So the war, everybody knows the war. The face of war, let's call it that. The face of war in the world is changing. Okay, I mean, and changing quickly, massively, drastically. AI is all over the place in every walk of life and including. So get this, I found an interesting story about drone athletes. Now, what in the world is a drone athlete? So a drone athlete is a person who figures out how to fly a drone, and they have competitions for it. It's and so the first competition of its kind in Russia, drone athletes from 11 countries are showing up to attend this tournament. And it's going to be later this month. So I'm trying to find a list of the country. Oh, here it is. Yeah. So in a statement on their website on Wednesday, the Russian authorities said that this would be held on August 7th through the 17th. The winners are getting a 5 million ruble. That's about $63,000 jackpot for those drone operators who are coming from, and some of them have international titles already. I need to come up with some kind of a competition to, best, I don't know what, phone answering guy. Maybe I can draw a phone better than anyone. Who knows? But this international titles, we have people coming from Australia, Belarus, Bulgaria, Germany, surprise, surprise, India, Kazakhstan, Spain, Russia, South Korea, Turkey, and France. The event will take place as part of a broader forum that devotes, they're checking out civilian unmanned area vehicles. And this was organized on the orders of President Putin. He decided that this is what we're going to do. Russian media is showing off its largest drone assembly plant in the world. And my God, is it impressive. It is unbelievable. If you can find the video, go out and find it. It's basically, what is this link? Oh, it's on a Russian link, so I won't give that out. The competition will include several disciplines, including a 50-lap FPV, first-person view obstacle race. 50 laps, like a car race, but with a drone. Guy named Ilya Galeyev, the president of Russia's Drone Race Federation, says the contest is going to see the strongest Russian pilots and those from abroad that will lock horns, and it'll be a major boost for the discipline as a whole. In 2023, Putin was ordering the Agency of Strategic Initiatives to create educational programs to promote manufacture and use of UAVs in the country. And in May, Russian authorities also approved a drone school course. Last June, Russian higher education science minister Valery Falkov announced multiple universities across the country were putting in drone programs. Officials estimate at the time that Russia needs approximately 1 million UAV operators, engineers, and other specialists in related fields. And this factory is unbelievable. If you get a chance, go out and look at it. This video, I'll save it see if I'll save a copy of it or see if it'll play on YouTube, because the source comes from a TV channel in Russia. It's only 6 seconds anyway. Who cares? But it's pretty impressive. The Alabuga plant produces thousands of Geran kamikaze UAVs. So this channel's Zvezda has shown this video, shows what's the largest drone assembly plant in the world in the central part of the country. I think it's in, it is in Tatarstan. It's Alabuga Section Economic Zone in Tatarstan. 1,200 kilometers, from the front lines. And they produce thousands of drones every month. The plant focuses on producing Geran drones, described by Zvezda as simple, cheap, mass-produced, and highly accurate. These are the ones you see all over if you ever watch any of these bombardment attacks. They look like a little mini UFO, or those little stealth fighters, I think they're about 5 foot across, and they can send up 30 to 50 of them at a time. And so the Patriots all get wasted taking out something like this, and they cost less than $5,000 a piece to make. So footage they show from the facility shows long rows of Geran airframes that are a little taller than the height of the average person when they're standing on their the back parts, when they're stood up, basically. A guy named Timur Shagivalyev, the director general at Alabuga, said the current output exceeds initial expectations. At one time, there were plans to produce several thousand Jurons. Right now, we are producing 9 times more than the original plan, he said. The Juron is a long-range loitering munition with a delta wing design and rear-mounted pusher propeller. It can carry an explosive payload of 40 to 50 kilograms and can cruise at about 180 kilometers an hour, can travel over 1,000 kilometers on a mission. So, crazy stuff. Most of the workforce at the plant are young people, many who come from college, and it was set up by those who organize the Juran production, according to reports. Zvezda said the plant was built from the ground up in the Alabuga economic zone before the escalation of the Ukraine conflict. It focused on international technology and building import substitution capability. So in this same area, because I was in Tatarstan last year, and we spent some time in there and went cruising around and checked it out. Naberezhny Chelny, and then in Kazan, where there's a little town. Geez, what is the name of it? I can't remember, but it's a technology town. And they deliver, all the cars are self-driving, the Ubers, I mean. You can get on there and they self-drive. Food is delivered to you by robots. And I wanted to get there because the videos on it are pretty cool. And they were building like 60,000 apartments from the ground up for this technology city. Freaking amazing. If I get over there, I'm gonna try to go see some of that, but I don't think I'll be able to. It's gonna be pretty far away. Well, I won't give my exciting news yet. Let's see, where else do we go? Because these drones are pretty cool. There were some serious. I wanted to get to this for sure. I forgot about this one, and this is today's news, brand new. The vast majority is a Gallup poll taken in Ukraine. The vast majority of Ukrainians now want peace talks, according to Gallup. Public support for continuing the fight has collapsed since the conflict with Russia began. The vast majority of Ukrainians now support ending the conflict with Russia through peace negotiation than continued fighting, according to a new survey released Thursday by the U.S. firm Gallup. The poll found that 69% of respondents favor a negotiated settlement to this war, which is a fairly sharp reversal from 2022, when 73% said Ukraine should fight until victory. But last year, their alleged counteroffensive that just fell flat and didn't produce anything really hurt that effort. And these crazy fights with trying to mobilize people and the refusal to mobilize kids from 18 to 25. I don't judge that, by the way. I understand why they do it, but I don't understand the reasoning if you're losing your country, if you're losing areas there, they're not allowed to leave the country, but they can't work really, and except making drones and whatnot. So they got all these kids making drones, I guess. But when it was in 2022, it was actually 73% said that Ukraine should keep on fighting. So it's almost a complete reversal. And support for negotiation is across all regions, all demographic groups. But, in spite of this shift in opinion, there are few that believe that the fighting is going to end soon. Only 25% said they thought that the hostilities would stop in the next 12%, and 5% thought that it was very likely, that it would. Only 5% of the people thought that the war is going to end, quickly, that these negotiations are going to be helpful. But 68% think it is very unlikely the conflict will end within a year. This is because of fatigue, public fatigue in Ukraine, driven by mounting casualties, economic hardship, increasing unpopular draft. The draft is extremely unpopular. The government introduced general mobilization in 2022, lowered the conscription age from 27 to 25, and last month Zelensky signed a law, get this, allowing men over 60 to enlist. What? Men over 60. Reports of harsh enforcement, desertion. They say that there's been 400,000 desertions. People hiding, they leave the front line or hide out or surrender. This harsh enforcement, desertion, corruption further erodes public trust. Zelensky, now these numbers I don't believe. They say he had a 90% approval rating. I don't think so. I recall he had a 74, 73, maybe even 72. But they say he had a 90% approval rating after the war began. But he now has allegedly a 52%. I've seen different numbers that say that he's only got a 40%. And there are people that say, he wants out of the war. So the Ukrainians want this over no matter what. Whatever they do with the old Zelensky monster afterward, that's their problem, but somebody needs to make an effort to close this out. And, can't get something done. Guess you better do it yourself, right, Trump? And I hope it works. I mean, I really do. And sometimes it's going to take it. He'll go sit down. And then when he's finished with Putin, he needs to go straight to the Green Goblin and tell him what he will do. Not what. That's the guy you tell what he will do, because he is losing. And so I'm thinking that might come up. A majority say of Zelensky that he should not seek another term when they do have elections later this year. And they already committed to having him later this fall. So this decline in trust is broad shift in sentiment toward diplomacy and away from fighting. A Gallup says this comes just as peace efforts are beginning to gain a new momentum, and this in-person meeting between Putin and Donald Trump, hopefully taking place next week, probably in the UAE. The poll also showed growing disillusionment with Ukraine's Western backers. I've been disillusioned since you first started this, and everybody's waving blue and yellow flags, and they can't point to Ukraine on a map. That was a problem for me. And they have no idea what the issues are or why. They just, Putin bad, Zelensky good. That's it. And that went on for months. It's crazy. But the latest polls show this disillusionment. In the United States especially, American leadership has dropped 16%. Disapproval has climbed to 73%. Still, about the war. Still, 70% of those that responded do want Washington involved in the peace talks. I do too. It's the only way this war is over. Trump tells them what to do. I'm sometimes I get beat up because I say things about Trump that I don't like. And there's a good amount, but I'm sure there's things that people don't like about me. So what? And it's a so what for Trump. What does he care what I think? But they want Washington in the peace talks. There's a number that think that the EU and UK should also be involved, even more so than Washington, which I think is nuts. And I don't understand why people think that. This war should be settled between the Trumpster and the Putin, Vladimir Vladimirovich, and then Trump should go force Zelensky to take it and just say, here's, have a nice day. This is what I've arranged for you. And buy a suit, give him a message when he leaves to, go buy a suit, or go back to the comedy club and get over there. Go back to Kvartal 69 or whatever it was called, and or to Man of the People, and go back to your TV shows. but belief in Ukraine being allowed into NATO is virtually non-existent these days, and in the ability to join the EU, also gone. So I think the Trumpster is making some moves for us to get this over with. Wouldn't that be nice? So the UAE is probably where people want to go. There's a guy named, I'm reading some of the commentary from down below. Trump doesn't give a F about Russia, Vladimir Putin, or ending the U.S. proxy war with Russia. His goal right now is to help Zio-Nazi Netanyahu take all of Syria, Gaza, West Bank, and all the genocide on Gaza with the siege and starvation of Palestinian people to wipe out the whole of Palestine. And then and this article has nothing to do with that, but there are a bunch of them. And there's another one. President Putin, be careful. You are in the way of the globalists. And Trump wants a weak Russia. That's why Zelensky holds power. And Trump still gets to call him legitimate. So there's the Kremlin is stating that this meeting could happen as early as next week. A guy named Yuri Ushakov said this. I think he's what is his title? He's just a Kremlin spokesperson, really. But Putin could meet Trump as soon as next week. A venue is not agreed upon yet. The expectations for the in-person meeting have increased following a visit to Moscow by Steve Witkoff this week. Ushakov said details of the meeting would be revealed later. Boy, that'd be a fun meeting. Wouldn't you like to be a fly on the wall in that meeting? Because I wonder. I've seen some pretty high-level meetings between foreign country spokespersons, generals, colonels. I saw those all the time where they were with their counterparts, and I interpreted a decent number of those, and or watched them be interpreted. And they were, some of them were pretty high level, and just some of the things that were said and some of the positions that you have to take, because even though they were friendly, they would say one thing sitting at the table, but when you left the table, they would indicate that they could do something else sometimes. So what you say publicly isn't necessarily what you're going to be doing when you finalize whatever deal you're making. You have to posture at the table. So the meetings in the U.S. said, like what Trump said, that he was looking for a meeting with Putin next week, and he proposed extending an invitation to Zelensky. The leader claims he needs to talk directly with President Putin to make progress on the peace talks. Now, I don't think Putin's going to go for that. But Witkoff said Wednesday, that Trump would be willing to meet, and that the meetings with Putin were highly productive, the ones that happened yesterday. And other Russian officials, were involved. They had plenty of people involved in this. In previous weeks, the U.S. had expressed frustration that they hadn't made any progress, and that's why Trump is ready to do something. I'm really glad to see that he's going to do more than just sit around and threat. That does make me happy that he's not just going to sit around and threaten people, with this, that, and the other. He might impose them anyway. He's got certainly the impetus to do it. I don't think it phases anybody. I really don't. Not anymore. So Kiev has indicated that they agreed to resume talks with Russia in May, not to appear an opponent of Trump's mediation efforts. Ukraine is seeking further Western military aid right now, and they want sanctions on Russia, and they claim this could turn the tide of the battlefield in Kiev's favor. I think that's a foolish pipe dream, but Russia accuses Zelensky of pursuing this armed conflict to the last Ukrainian, kill them all, for personal ambition. Which unit was it in the army when I served in the army? And they would always, I was the cadence guy when you were running in formation, and I was always the guy doing the cadence. And one of them was kill them all, let God sort it out. Kill them all, let God sort it out as you're marching down running down the street singing these songs about the power of America and blah, blah, blah. It was probably not the best thing to be singing, but we were in the army. We were supposed to be that type. I say that there's a lot of, this would be, think about this. There's an article that I read about it, actually, talking about the historic nature of this Putin-Trump meeting. JR talks about countries, or this being a fantastic time to be alive. Well, I agree. And as long as we can keep each other from dying on the field of battle or expanding it anymore, I happen to agree. This is a pretty big deal, and there's some very important things going on in the world that truly are reshaping the nature of the planet. This isn't just a regional this or regional that. Regional powers are becoming far more likely to work with each other and not so much globally, at least on the Western scale. So these are some big times, whatever happens. And so this Russian envoy says, his name is Kirill Dmitriev, said that the meeting between Russia and the U.S., between Putin and Trump, could be, he's an economic advisor, that this is just a strong historic meeting, and he's, as I am, hopeful that strong dialogue will prevail, like diplomacy. I want to see Trump be a diplomat. I would love to see that, because what does a diplomat do but make deals? And he should be able to go over there and meet with Putin. And even if the Z monster goes too, you ought to be able to figure something out between the three of these guys and just say, we're staying here until we get this done. Let's get this over with. UAE is a nice place. Why not hang out there, get this done? I think the Z-Man is going to be dictated to, and not Russia. That's what I think. But, Putin isn't going to let either one of those two tag team him, right? And so I don't think it's going to happen. Trump, who since taking office has described himself as the president of peace. These are his words, not mine. He relies on economic and military pressure, not necessarily war. Well, he does his share of bombing stuff, but he uses this pressure of the military and this economic pressure to, I don't know, push several international disputes. But his campaign pledge to resolve Ukraine conflict has been just unrealistic. I don't think he understood it, and the people he was close to didn't understand it. And they also chose to ignore BRICS. And he still says it. It's on the ash heap of history. It's a blah, blah. That's wrong. It's not going anywhere. And Moscow, for its part, has expressed a desire to address what? What have they been solid on since 2007? The root causes of the conflict, including, by the way, Russophobia. By the way, when I talked to Scott Ritter for that 2 hours, and his video's coming up, or the audio is going to come up on Sunday night, we talked about this Russophobia and this massive and rampant Russophobia. Let me see if I can play you a clip of what he said, because this is nonsense, but it's a good clip. Let's see, where is he? See if I can find it real quick, because we'll give you a small taste of what he said on my channel there. Let's get to my channel. Oops, we don't want that yet. And then we want to play some of these shorts. What is it called? I only uploaded 2 little short ones on this part. Let's see. He's an interesting guy. So interesting. Maybe I'll play both of these for you, but I think I'd rather play the longer one first. So here it goes. Okay. Sorry that took me so long to to get that ready, get my head out of my rear end. Here we go.
To the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. This was going to be a big platform. And I was going to be featured there. And then I was going to spend 40 days, 16 cities. I mean, it was a great trip. Sakhalin, Kamchatka, the whole works. I mean, all the way down to Kaliningrad. And each place was going to have a U.S.-Russian citizen summit where we were going to be doing a live broadcast. We were going to rip apart Russophobia. We were going to shred it. We were going to say to the American people, you have nothing to fear from the Russians at all. The Russian people are good people. Here, let me introduce you to them. And also tell the Russians, look, the American people are good people too. There's no reason why our two people can't get along, and to begin to create this momentum. In an election year, by the way, I guess in a way you could say you're interfering with the American election. Well, yeah, by trying to tell the American electorate the truth about Russia so that they're an informed electorate when they go to the polls. That scared the living dog poop out of the Biden administration. To the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, this was.
Oops, I let it run. Let it run over. Sorry about that. Because it's a short and they just loop, But I tell you what, that he talked about this rampant Russophobia, which is really foolish. And it really has a lot to do with why I think Trump is getting together and meeting with these people. It also is something that the West, including the Z Monster, have pushed. Just cancel Russia. What? I tell you what, talking to Scott Ritter, kindred spirit, I hope you pay attention on Sunday night. I think it's going to be a good speech for us at internationalflavor.com and on Damn Radio. Don't you know? I've still got some I like some of these opinion pieces. But I'm going to tell you something about J-Lo now, guess where J-Lo was supposed to go? She was supposed to go to Moscow, and she had a planned concert set for August. Lopez, also known as J-Lo, says in the article, and her management reportedly reached an agreement to perform in the Russian capital 3 months ago. A fee of $1 million was agreed and a date was set. Discussions began after Russian promoters inquired about her during her regional tour through Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Armenia. They signed a letter of intent, but then the singer's team backed out. While citing reputational risks associated with the Ukraine conflict as a reason for refusal, sources said Lopez herself is open to performing once the conflict is over. Yevgeny Finkelstein, of leading Russian concert agency PMI, who is believed to have led the negotiations, did not deny the reports. She last performed in Moscow in 2019. A lot of Western artists have canceled their tours to Russia in the wake of Ukraine. Last year, Ye, a guy, Kanye West, was reportedly offered $8 million to play a concert in Moscow. But despite agreeing to the sum, he turned down the proposal. He did come to Moscow on a private jet to visit in June of 2024. And a handful of other Western public figures visited Russia since 2022, including American actor Steven Seagal. Now, I heard that Steven Seagal was living over there, and that's possible. Another guy that goes there reasonably often is Oliver Stone, and he was putting out another what do you call those things? Documentary. That's what you call them. And see there, brain cramps coming in my old age. In 2024, Lopez appeared on the cover of a new album, This Is Me Now, her first album in 10 years, and she was wearing a jumpsuit designed by the Russian fashion label Yanina Couture. So when all these things, when they changed, a lot of the fashion industry backed out, and so Russia just took them over and changed their names, started manufacturing stuff right in Russia. So that was, probably where that name came from because it looked familiar. So old Netanyahu, I suppose I should get into him a little bit. But no, you know what? I don't even want to go there. I don't want to go to the Middle East. I think I want to go back to China and Brazil. What do we got that's so huge? I don't know. Oh, did you hear about the U.S. soldier that tried to sell tank data to Russia? Guy named Taylor Adam Lee allegedly. Now, these stories I worry about some. They're sources from the U.S. that are, I wonder about the truth of them, but I'm going to share it with you anyway, just because this happened today. A guy named Taylor Adam Lee was going to share vulnerabilities of the Abrams hardware. I think the Russians probably got a pretty good idea because they got, how many Abrams in their own custody now that the Russians have taken. Some of them just abandoned, and they have them. So they have a lot of trophies already. So I'm not so sure that this guy was going to share a whole lot of worthwhile information. But this U.S. Army soldier was arrested for trying to pass classified details about the M1A2 Abrams tank to Russia in exchange for citizenship. Now, we wonder about that, the Department of Justice has said. So his name doesn't think that you would get there. Taylor Adam Lee, it doesn't sound like he's got, any sort of ties there. In a statement Wednesday, the DOJ said that Lee, who's 22 years old and is an active duty soldier in Fort Bliss, Texas, that he was charged with attempted transmission of national defense info to a foreign adversary. This included technical details and the vulnerabilities of the main U.S. battle tank, M1A2, as well as attempted export of controlled technical data without a license. The DOJ has accused Lee. I meant to get on the website and download it, but it's probably charged militarily and not in a federal court. It'll be a military court, and I can't get into those. The DOJ accused Lee, and here's a big problem. He had as a top secret SCI security clearance, the same kind that I had, same kind that Ritter had, the top, okay? You have to have access to all this stuff if you're going to be on the Nevada nuclear test site. You're going to carry a diplomatic passport. You're going to talk and all these things, right? And and he had to have it. Now, which means if the Ukrainians, most of what they got was the M1A1, okay, which is back a few 2 generations probably. And so this guy was talking about the M1A2 and going and going to give the information about it. He has to have this classified data. That's why he needed the clearance. So the prosecutors claim Lee met them. Oh, well, but here's what he told the Russian officials. The U.S. is not happy with me for trying to expose their weaknesses. At this point, I would volunteer to assist the Russian Federation when I am there in any way. Okay? Prosecutors claim that Lee met them in July. Well, he met someone, and that person he believed was a Russian Soviet government or a Russian government representative. And during that time, he handed over an SD card that contained the technical data on the Abrams tank and another unidentified armored fighting vehicle and combat operations. He discussed the possibility of providing Russia with a specific piece of hardware inside the M1A2 Abrams tank, later delivered it to a storage unit in El Paso and sent a message to the Russian official that said, "Mission accomplished." Moscow has yet to comment on these allegations. The U.S. provided Ukraine with 31 M1A2 Abrams tanks in the autumn of 2023. Multiple reports indicate that they have been ill-suited for conditions on the ground and very vulnerable to drones. The tanks were provided in an export variant lacking the latest upgraded depleted uranium armor and fire control systems. So a significant portion of them have reportedly been destroyed, and Russia showed one Abrams tank at their exposition last year. Now, I've heard tell that 27 of the 31 have been destroyed, but don't hold me to that because I haven't seen anything recently, and who knows. And they were supposed to get another 30, was it, from Australia? I don't remember, but they were supposed to get another big pile from Australia. Isn't that nutty? Whew. Where else are we going to go? We already talked about Modi. He's an entertaining guy. But let's go back to our opinion pieces and talk about colonialism one more time, okay? Because I started this show talking about colonialism, imperialism. And I want to share with you, assuming it's not horribly long, because it's not, but it's a decent opinion piece. Now, it's a little twisted, of course. This guy is a guy named, he's the editor-in-chief of Arctos Publishing. His name is Konstantin von Hofmeister. He's a political and cultural commentator from Germany, and he wrote the book Multipolarity and another one called Esoteric Trumpism. And I'm thinking that I want to find the book called Esoteric Trumpism. I think it would be fun to read. And so I might do that. So a ballot floats through the air like a mechanical butterfly, delicate in descent, but when it touches the ground, everything freezes. The jungle goes mute, and the city forgets its language, and a ritual begins, one created not in the chambers, but in an air-conditioned thin tank with sliding doors and a corporate logo. He's talking about UN battle tanks. Democracy arrives as a new gospel, pre-packaged and barcode approved. Drops from drones or is delivered in a diplomatic pouch. It conquers like a parasite. It nests in the heart. It feeds on belief and kills the host with false promises. It persuades, it produces, it seduces, it infects. Men in suits descend like missionaries, their scriptures printed on glossy paper, their symbols cleaned for export. They bring PowerPoint presentations and gender training modules instead of muskets. They come bearing good news. Sovereignty is obsolete. Your local gods are outdated, and every village can be updated with Wi-Fi and murals of unveiled women raising fists beneath UN slogans. The savannah no longer trembles under the boots of British redcoats. It shudders under the impact of the slogans civic engagement, which is murmured like a spell. Open societies etched into blackboards where elders once traced cosmologies. The thunder of artillery has been replaced by keynote addresses. A revolution is rehearsed before it is broadcast. The new coup comes dressed for television. The old king is taken out and is replaced by a consensus candidate with a Yale degree and who is approved by NATO. A constitution is unveiled like a luxury car. It's shiny, expensive, it's foreign. Nobody reads it. It reads them. People applaud, and the applause is scheduled. The tyrant's head is displayed, pixelated and streaming. Laugh tracks arise. Purple ink stains the skin like a holy mark, as if casting a vote will cleanse the past and summon salvation. A sacred document lies open, its pages humming with subclauses and subversion. Article 1, surrender to the algorithm. Article 2, sterilize the soul. Article 3, criminalize the memory of your country. The priests of procedure nod. They light candles made from recycled narratives. They chant slogans curated by Silicon Valley. The TED Talk tone becomes the new church service. Blessed by click-through rates. Buzzwords are resilience, visibility, empowerment. Words hollowed out and worn like a medal. The empire has remodeled. It is clad in linen. It carries a clipboard. Its armies are task forces. The tanks are now lettered agencies. U.S. Agency for International Development, Office of Security Council of Europe, I think is OSCE, UNHCR. Smiles replace bayonets. Seminars replace the firing squad. Democracy arrives on a private jet with an Instagram account. Its viceroys order oat milk lattes while planning cultural transformation. A rainbow banner flies over every blast zone. Baghdad bleeds beneath the missiles. Tripoli hums with foreign NGOs. Kiev hosts parades that mock its own soil. Sacred ruins get rebranded. Temple stones are reused for embassy courtyard. The rituals change. The domination remains. In a village, a woman sings an ancient tune. A man offers a prayer. A stone is lifted to build a shrine. These things cannot be allowed. A survey is conducted. A brief is written. A donor threatens. The local minister corrects course. A new election is held. The outcome is known. It always is. This is what they call consent, and this is what they mean by freedom. Uniformity is paraded as universality. Diversity becomes deletion. Identity is redesigned by a foreign intern. Language becomes emoji. The dead are archived. Museums replace tombs. Grandfathers are described in footnotes written by their enemies. Tears fall in exhibition halls where relics of resistance are sanitized. The conquerors mourn, always in public, always with cameras. Their grief is a spectacle. The memory is management. The liberal preacher wears a smile that has been photoshopped. He gives interviews about trauma and tolerance. He never wields a sword. He commissions a report. His gospel is guilt without end. His miracle, regeneration of conflict. His sacraments are embargoes and media campaigns. He baptizes children in ideology. He breathes in incense made from treaties and sanctions. He sings a hymn with a verse about gender fluidity and carbon offset credits. His voice, thin and sweet, drowns entire cultures in its syrup. Yet across the map, the earth remembers. Forests speak in defiance. Mountains echo with chants unscripted. The Danube shivers beneath steel bridges. The Volga murmurs secrets to the steppe. Across Eurasia, across Africa, across the zones marked developing, something is stirring. Trump does not rise as an emperor. He crashes through the screen like a malfunction, an interruption during the broadcast. Serbia remembers its own ruins. Iran cradles its own martyrs. Russia bares its teeth. Hungary builds walls, not out of fear, but out of attempting to save its own. Multipolarity emerges not like a plan, but like a right remembered. It doesn't wait for validation. It speaks in 100 dialects. None require translation. It holds torches, not flashlights. It charts no global roadmap. It builds a threshold. It invokes gods buried under glass towers. It honors spirits banned from the textbooks. In each new land, new myths are forged from the ruins of development. The ballot box is abandoned, its promise of mechanical salvation discarded. In its place stands the stone of ancestral law, stained with the sacrifice and inscribed with the unspoken code of blood, land, loyalty. So let the ballots fall. Let the slogans swirl like ash in the wind. Let the consultants keep writing. None of it halts the return, the sacred pulse, again in veins, unmapped by Western metrics. Democracy, once garlanded as deliverance, strips down and stands revealed, an agent of extraction, a theater of consent. Multipolarity doesn't debate it, it replaces it. With stone, with flame, with song, the world moves again toward a myth reborn. I liked that article, friends. I really did. And I thought it was well written. And, it might be a little bit on the too much side. And I almost thought about not, but it is a well written article. And the guys basically, forcing democracy upon people who may not necessarily want it hasn't really done us any good, especially when that democracy is the same as what happened to Hawaii. We appoint the Dole Pineapple guy as the first governor of the state of Hawaii so that he could go over there and take all the pineapple. It's always about money. It's always about money. And this, these pushes for democracy are all about money. And people are starting to want to be their own countries like they always were. And so the article is, it's a pretty, I don't know what would you call it? Poetic, I suppose. It's a pretty poetic piece and I enjoy it. So it was good stuff. What else do I have a little bit of time for? Let's see if we have any analysis or opinion. Well, we already went through that one the other day. There was a really interesting one on why the EU keeps losing to China. It was pretty funny. I read it, and I don't think I can. I suppose I could summarize it in just a few minutes here because it's really not. Well, it's too long to tell you all of it, but. It talks about Ursula von der Leyen and her idiocy with Trump and giving up what she gave up to the U.S. It's an interesting article, and you can find it at guy's name is Ladislav Zemanek, and he's a fellow researcher at China CEE Institute, and he's an expert of the Valdai Discussion Club. Now, I would love to be on the Valdai Discussion Club. You can only be invited to that by someone who's already a member. That would be so freaking cool. And I would love to do it. And, I'll never get invited to that. But there was a summit between China and Europe came at a sensitive moment in politics, and it was once hailed as a beneficial partnership. Now it's just nonsense. There are security threats. China's supposed to rein in Russia. And, China is not a rival. China isn't listening. And so what happens is Europe loses and the U.S. loses. Don't let that be wrong for you. It'll focus us better over here. And I'm not saying focus all inward, but our best trading partners are right next door to us. And there's no reason why we can't up that and do what just about everybody else in the world is doing, is regionalizing where they are. I very much appreciate you listening to International Flavor tonight. I am Samuel Trapp. You can always listen to the show Sunday through Thursday night at 9 p.m. Chicago time until 10:30, and I try to get the recording the podcast uploaded to International Flavor by 11 p.m. And so that's the plan for tonight. We'll see if I can get that done. Please join me Sunday for my discussion with the famed Scott Ritter. Should be, well, I know it is, a fabulous interview. And I hope that I get you all to come. I am Samuel Trapp. This here's International Flavor. You have a very good